Yo guys, welcome to the video. This is Josh or Milky, and in today's video we're going to be going over my new build. It's week 2 of Torchlight now, and Erika is behind us. She's going to be hard to replace. She was so fast. So I looked at the hero rankings and I saw that Seething Rehan wasn't getting much love, and maybe that's because he's a paid hero, or maybe it's because people haven't quite figured him out yet. But the fact that you can automate attack skills and make kind of a cast on crit attack build really interested me. So as you can see from the footage at the beginning, it is a very fast build. I've put barely any currency into it so far, so we're going to go over it all in this video. So the first thing we're going to need to talk about is the hero traits. How exactly does he automate the attack skills? And the way that he does that is when you build Rage, you have a chance to summon the Seething Spirit on your back, which will attack for you. It will cast whatever your main skill is. This is whichever skill is on your right click or in the first slot when you open up the skill tab. And this is based on the amount of Rage you have, so it's very important to build Rage as quickly as possible, and this is done by attacking. You get Rage every single attack, so attack speed is going to be huge to scale this build and get that Seething Spirit up as often as possible. You also get a lot of double damage, which results in you getting additional attacks with your Seething Spirit from growing anger. Every time you deal double damage, the Seething Spirit will attack an additional time and do more damage. And then Hysteria, because we're going up and down in Rage so often, this essentially becomes a 20% additional damage multiplier times 2, because we're going to be going up and down and up and down and up and down. We do it all in 4 seconds, which is what recently means. So we end up getting 40% additional damage from this hero trait. And then finally, Rage Infusion. This makes it so that we can generate more rage on attacks, so that we can, again, consistently be going up to 100 to 0 to 100 to 0 and constantly spawning our Seething Spirit. And there are some really complementary hero relics and hero memories for this. The hero relic that I actually went with was one that I only found out about yesterday. I didn't actually know this existed before I started playing the build. I didn't realize Seething Spirit gets free explode, which is a very premium stat in any ARPG. It allows you to kill one mob and that mob will then explode and kill all the mobs around it. It's an insane mod to be able to get for free, and these are quite cheap. So if you are playing Seething Rehan and you didn't know this existed, definitely look to pick one up. You want one with 3 engrams. I managed to get a decent roll on the other one, but it doesn't really matter what you get there. Just make sure you get a decent roll on the explode. Whether it's 6%, 7%, anywhere up to 10, all are good. And then kind of one of the most important things about the build is this future burn offering, which makes it so your Seething Spirit always exists while your Berserk is up. Now, it might seem weird because obviously we're going up and down in Berserk so often, we're spawning him, but for mapping this did actually feel very important. For single target, maybe not as much. I know this is very expensive. The build does function without it, but it is a great quality of life addition to the build. He will get a few more attacks off while you're still in Berserk, even though it is so rapid as you go through it. And then for the final 2, I just went with some double damage so that we can proc our additional attack more often, and I'm just using 2 of those. There are other alternatives that we're going to look into in the future, but as I say, this is quite a budget setup for now. And when we started playing it, the biggest decision we had to make was, what do we want our Seething Spirit to trigger? There is many different things you can have him do. You can have him use Demolisher skills like Ground Shaker or Frost Impact, but I found that that just didn't work because that additional attack would never consume a Demolisher charge, because you consume it on the first attack, the second one's not going to have one available. So we immediately eliminated them. Steep Strike was the next option, and unfortunately Berserking Blade seemed incredibly effective. We have just got finished playing Berserking Blade on another hero. It's just so good to have that 360-degree coverage. It makes mapping incredibly quick, as you saw in the opening footage. And then for single target, you can just slot in a Flame Slash and you will do probably like twice as much damage as with a Berserking Blade. As for the skills, we are using a 6-link with Flame Slash, Precision Strike, Elemental Fusion, Steamroll, Raging Slash, and added fire damage. This is just a 1-for-1 swap with Berserking Blade if you choose to use that during your mapping. For our life regen, we've got Life Source, Residues, and Berserk. This just allows our life regen to not fall off. If we hit full life, it'll tick over every time we take damage. And then Berserk just gives us a nice amount of crit. Moving around is very important. You need as much attack speed as possible to generate that Seething Spirit and that Rage. So we went with Quick Mobility. It's quite a natural pickup. Precision Strike actually has an attack speed multiplier built into it, and you'll do more damage. And then Periodic Burst gives you 29.5% additional attack speed as well. Harden just makes you a bit more durable, 25% damage reduction, very nice. And then for the mandatory buffs, as usual, it's Bull's Rage and Bloodthirst. Bloodthirst actually got changed in this patch to give you additional attack speed instead of increased, which is massive because we're scaling so much to increase. The additional multiplier actually ends up making us go a lot faster, so very important for this build. For the passive setup, We've got Cast on Crit, Scorch, Fixate, Seal Conversion. If you've seen any of my builds in the past, this should look very familiar. And then for the auras, we have Charge Flames, Flame Imbue, Fearless, and Restraint. If you don't have a Restraint, if it's too expensive, just swap out the Charge Flames for a Summon Flame Spirit. It'll fit on there nicely. You don't actually need much mana unreserved because you get minus skill cost from the God of Might tree. And as you can see, we actually have cost conversion on the Bloodthirst. And then finally, any aura you want in the final slot. I just went with Rejuvenation for a bit of life regen. Now, after looking at that, you could easily think, well, how are you still getting that much attack speed? It doesn't make sense. And the reason for it is because we're scaling Tenacity Blessings. We do this by picking up Tenacity in God of Might, which gives us an extra Tenacity Blessings as well as a chance to generate them. Fueling allows us to ignore the enemy resistance. This takes effect whether their resistance is positive or negative, so there's no reason to get penetration in the build. Warlord gives you tons of AoE, as well as adding an additional effect to your Tenacity Blessings is 15% increased fire damage, which is all we're dealing, so it's a lot more damage, and +2 max Tenacity Blessings. This is important because of an item choice we have. You need to get up to 10, and then this is interchangeable in maps. You can use either Focus Strike for the additional damage, so we're really good against bosses, or True Flame for that extra coverage. This will trigger off of your explodes as well, so you'll get really big proliferations of explosions. And then the attack speed is coming from Blood Striker. Our Tenacity Blessings, instead of granting us damage reduction, now grant us 8% additional, not increased, additional attack speed. And we have 10. So that's 80% additional attack speed and 80% increased skill radius, which obviously gives us that full screen coverage. And then finally, we've got no loose ends, which gives us a lot of crit strike. And in the situation where you do find yourself on low life, a nice additional damage multiplier. The trees will be linked in the description in the builder. I'm not going to go through the trees in the video because you'll have to keep pausing. They'll be in the description if you want to find those. And then finally, as I said, we haven't invested much into this build outside of the hero relic. Everything else is very affordable. We have a helmet. I bought this for 1 FE. It's only an item level 82 base. Just put on some basic stuff, some life, some resistance. The chest is a Sky Devourer strength armor. This gives a nice boost to area damage and skill radius. It's perfect for the build because it combines with our belt. Our belt actually takes all those increases we have to skill radius from Tenacity Blessings, gear, the item, the skill itself, and then transforms it into area damage as well. So this is a nice pickup. Whether or not we swap to an infinity in the end game, I'm not sure yet, but for now this is more than adequate. We're doing upwards of 300 million damage just with this belt alone. And then the gloves are very important. Varagon Shroud. We need to get to 10 Tenacity. We need to get to 10 Tenacity Blessings to activate these. It gives us a ton of multi-strike chance, steep strike chance, and also another additional attack speed multiplier, as well as a nice boost to our crit. And then the amulet. There are a few amulets you can choose. You can use the True Flame amulet. You can use the Focus Strike amulet. I just went with the rare because I didn't feel like it was necessary. I needed the resistances, and this works out perfectly. The boots. If you don't have a chaotic ending with +1 Tenacity Blessings, the boots are important to get you over the line to 10. If you have a chaotic ending with an additional Tenacity Blessing, these boots can be swapped out for some with resistances. There's also a nice ruling mod on boots that adds physical damage as fire damage, which is going to be a nice increase to your damage. But these boots are also very nice regardless. They give you some... They allow you to generate Tenacity Blessings quicker, and you also get a nice bit of res. For the rings, as I say, very basic, just some resistances, some life, bit of melee damage. And then I decided to go with the two-handed sword because having a large amount of gear DPS is really important. We already get so much attack speed, it makes so much sense to have just a huge DPS weapon to swing as often as possible. We have so much attack speed that why not? We might as well hit as hard as possible because we don't have to worry about dual wielding. I did try dual wielding out, it does work okay, but if you are going to try this, I would recommend getting a two-handed sword with as much gear physical damage as possible. This can be done with gear physical damage or added gear fire damage because we are dealing fire damage as well. And in the suffixes you can look for anything such as attack speed, crit rating, crit damage. This one has multi-strike just because I happen to roll it. It doesn't have to be this at all. And I'm actually going to craft a fully T1 version of this sword today as we plan to take this build into T8. So I'm going to go and craft up the gear. But this is day one. I did manage to get up to, I think it's level 93, just short of 94. And the build just works perfectly. All you do is leap slam through maps, and it works beautifully. So the builder is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, subscribe, and you can check me out on stream if you want to see the build in action. And we're going to be doing some T8s, as well as potentially some of the Uber bosses today, because I think this build is more than capable. I'll see you next time.